The monk who walked on water, a story of faith beyond form. What happens when you believe so fully that the earth cannot hold you? Opening transmission. What if faith were so complete, so unwavering, that even gravity had to obey it? What if a single step, taken from pure knowing, could carry you across water without sinking? Not a parable, not a metaphor, but a true story passed through generations. This is not the tale of a miracle meant to impress. It is the revelation of what becomes possible when the mind dissolves and the soul becomes the only compass. Come now into the silence where this truth lives. The monk who walked on water, and what it means for your own awakening. 1. The mountain path of devotion. Long ago in the remote ranges of the eastern Himalayas, there lived a monk of no great name. He did not lead a monastery, he did not write sutras, he did not display powers. He simply served, silently. For many years in the kitchen of a revered temple, boiling rice before sunrise, fetching water from the distant river, cleaning vessels after every meal. But within him was a flame, unwavering and bright. He had one instruction from his guru before the master passed from the body. Every day, repeat the holy name. Never stop. Whatever happens, let that name be your heartbeat. And so he did. From the first light of dawn to the quiet hush of night, his lips moved in continuous rhythm. The mantra had replaced his breath, and with each day his sense of being someone separate, someone striving, thinned. The other monks barely noticed him. They called him simple, slow, but he did not care. For inside, his soul was being hollowed into silence. 2. The day of the festival. One year, during the sacred festival of lights, the entire monastic community was to gather across the river. A rare moment of joy and unity among ascetics. But by the time the kitchen monk completed his duties and cleaned every pot, the sun had begun to set. He realized the last ferry had already crossed. The river, swollen with monsoon rains, had become too dangerous for swimming. The current fierce, the banks unstable. Most would have accepted this as fate. But the monk stood at the edge of the water, eyes full of gentle trust. He whispered the holy name just once, and stepped forward, and the water held him. He did not know he was walking on water. He simply knew that the name would carry him, and as each foot touched the river's skin, the surface received it. Not by magic, not by power, but by complete and total surrender. He walked across, slowly, steadily, whispering the name, and arrived at the festival in silence, with wet robes and glowing eyes. 3. What the master saw. When the chief abbot of the gathering saw him, he was astounded. "How did you come?" he asked. The monk looked puzzled. "I walked," he said gently. "Across the water?" The monk blinked, surprised by the question. "I just walked while saying the name. There was no river, only the name." A hush fell over the gathering. Some wept, some bowed. But the monk, unaware of his supposed miracle, simply went to the kitchen and resumed his seva. He had not performed a feat. He had walked in the absence of doubt. 4. Beyond the laws of physics. Modern minds crave explanation. Was this a siddhi, a yogic power, a symbolic story? But to ask that is to miss the essence. This event is recorded in Himalayan oral tradition as fact, not legend. And in many such lineages, the impossible is not rare, but expected, where the laws of matter submit to the laws of consciousness, where vibration shapes matter, and absolute faith dissolves separation. In the Yoga Sutras, the term for such transcendence is beyond cause and effect, when mind no longer identifies with body, when one-pointed absorption replaces the conditioned self. Then action becomes formless, and the elements respond not to density but to presence. The monk did not walk on water because he wanted to prove anything. He simply no longer believed in separation. 5. The inner alchemy of devotion. Let us understand what really allowed the miracle. It was not belief in an idea, it was immersion in a frequency. For years, the monk had chanted the name until the name had chanted him, until the sound replaced thought, until he no longer moved as a man, but as stillness in motion. His surrender was not passive, it was radiant, absolute. The kind of surrender that bends the laws of gravity. In this level of inner alchemy, devotion becomes identity dissolution. And when there is no separate self to be afraid, fear vanishes. And when fear vanishes, the impossible becomes natural. 6. The relevance to you. You may not wish to walk on water, but the story of the monk reveals something more vital. It shows that when we are deeply aligned with the subtle current, when we operate from silence instead of ego, all resistance vanishes. You too have rivers in your life, moments where the bridge is gone, the ferry has left, and all logic says, you cannot cross. But if you are still, if you are quiet enough to hear the inner name, and if you trust what that silence reveals, you may find yourself stepping forward into the unknown and discovering it holds you. The practice is not about believing in miracles. It is about dissolving into the space where nothing is withheld. 7. The monk returns to silence. After that night, the monk became even more invisible. He did not speak of the event. He never walked on water again. And when asked, he would smile and say, there was no river. Eventually, he left the monastery and lived in a cave beyond the forests. Some say he left the body in a state of stillness so profound that the animals gathered around him to listen. Others say he simply vanished, but his story remains, not as something to admire, but as something to remember. You are not bound by gravity. You are bound by belief. And when belief in separation dissolves, even rivers must move out of your way. Mystical reflection. The monk walked on water not to demonstrate a miracle, but because he had already crossed the river within. This is the real invitation of the path, not outward spectacle, but inward release. May you meet your own edge with such silence that the earth beneath you forgets to pull you down. If this story touched something deep in you, you are not alone. Subscribe to this sacred channel to receive transmissions that pierce the veil, and become a member if you feel called to support this ancient remembering. This path is not for the masses, but for those who know there is more. Next transmission preview. In the next episode, what it feels like to fall into formlessness. A direct transmission on how to dissolve the sense of self completely until only awareness remains.